Hello, everybody, and welcome to our conference. The session that we are part of today is Civic Engagement and Voting. We have Ronaldo Fowler, Senior Advocate from the Arizona Center for Disability Law, Bill Lucero, Civic Engagement, Self-Advocates Becoming Empowered, and Gina Roberts, the Director of Voter Education from the Arizona Citizen Clean Election Commission.
Thank you, Juliana. Good morning, everybody. So excited to be here with all of you and really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you all about voting. Ronaldo and Bill and I are going to give a joint presentation, and so I'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen with all of you, and hopefully you can see the presentation. Unless somebody tells me otherwise, I'm going to assume you can see it. I wanted to give a little bit of background about the agency that I'm with. As Juliana mentioned, I'm the Voter Education Director for the Arizona Citizens Clean Elections Commission. Clean Elections is the state's nonpartisan voter education agency. So we are a state of Arizona agency, and we were actually created by voters through a citizens initiative. And our goal is to promote participation in the political process. And so that's for the entire state. We work really hard to try and reach all voters across the state to equip them with the information and the tools that they need to vote. We are, and we do that really through three main functions. We have our website, which is azcleanelections.gov. And that's really a wealth of information. It's a one-stop shop. It has all the information you need on upcoming elections, everything you need to verify your voter registration or track your ballot, which we'll get into all of that stuff. But if anything that you take away from this presentation today, I hope it's that website address, because that's really a great location for you to get everything that you need to vote in the upcoming elections. We're also known for our debates. We sponsor candidate debates for statewide and legislative candidates. Last year we did those online through Zoom, and so we expect to do that again in 2022. And then we have our voter education guide, and this is a guide that we send out automatically to every household in the state of Arizona that has a registered voter in it. And it has all the information that you need for the primary and general election, as well as information on the candidates that are running. So let's jump into it. Let's talk about registering to vote. So in Arizona, the requirements to be a registered voter are you have to be 18 years on or before the next general election, 18 years of age. You have to be a citizen of the United States, and you have to be a resident of both the state and the county that you wish to vote in 29 days, at least 29 days before the election. You must also be able to make your mark or write your name unless you're prevented by a disability from doing so. And if that's the case, then we'll talk about that in some future slides. But if you are unable to make your mark or sign your name, you need to be in contact with your county recorder's office, or perhaps if your mark is a digital signature, they can accept that. Whatever your mark is, that's your mark. But you do need to contact the county election or county recorder's office, because they'll need to know how to process your voter registration form. They'll need to know, okay, this truly is the voter's mark, because again, they'll want to make sure that they process it correctly. You cannot register to vote in the state if you have been adjudicated an incapacitated person, or if you've been convicted of a treason or felony and you have not had your civil rights restored. In Arizona, if you have a first-time felony and you complete all of your fines and restitutions and your community service, whatever was assigned to you, civil rights are automatically restored for that first time. So those are the requirements. Now, the ways to register to vote. You can register to vote two ways. One is on a paper form. So whether you go down in person to the county recorder's office, if you get one mailed to you, which we're happy to mail it to you from Clean Elections, your county recorder's office can mail you the form, or you can download and print one online. Their forms are available at the library, local community centers, things like that. Or you can register to vote online at servicearizona.com. Online registration, you need to have a state of Arizona driver's license or identification card. So if you have an Arizona ID card, you can go to servicearizona.com, register, and hopefully it should just take a few minutes to do. Once you do get registered to vote, in about 4 to 6 weeks, you'll get your official voter registration card in the mail. I recommend that you review that card and make sure that it's correct, that the county has your name correct, your political affiliation correct, your address correct, all of your information correct, because you want to make sure the county entered in your information correctly. That way there's no surprises when you go to vote. And then of course, once you're registered, we want you to vote. So how do you actually vote in Arizona? The great thing about our state is we have a lot of options on how a voter can cast their ballot. So voting can be done either in person on election day at the polls. It could be done through mail-in ballots during the early voting period. It could be done in person during the early voting period. And it can also be done through a special election board. And we'll go through each of those options. So what to expect if you decide to vote by mail? Every election offers early voting. And so 27 days before the election, ballots will automatically go out to voters who are on the early voting list. Now, we've long had what's called a permanent early voting list where voters can sign up and the county will automatically mail them a ballot for every election they're eligible to vote in. During this last legislative session, the legislature did make a change to that, and it will now be called the active early voting list when the law goes into effect next week. However, there is a citizens referendum out there right now on that law. So I'm not too sure if it's going to be filed. If it is, then that law goes on hold. But essentially, any changes from that legislation, the voter technically would not experience or see a change for a few years from now. Basically, what that legislation does is it says that if you do not vote the ballot that's mailed to you for 2 federal election cycles, then your name will be removed from the early voting list. And that's really important that to understand. It's not from the voter registration rolls. You'll still be an active registered voter. It just means that the county will no longer automatically send you your ballot if you're not actually voting that early ballot by mail. However, again, not quite sure what's going to happen with the status of that law until next week. But again, the main thing to take away is Arizona does have an early voting list. And if you want to automatically get sent your ballot for every election you can vote in, you can go ahead and sign up for that. Ballots will also go out to voters who make a one-time request. So if you have a preference between sometimes going to vote in person or sometimes getting your ballot mailed to you, you can just make that one-time request instead of signing up for that early voting list. Ballots are mailed to the mailing address that's on file for the voter if they have one. If there's no mailing address on file, then it goes to the residence address. If you decide that you want to make a one-time request, or let's say you need a replacement ballot, maybe your dog ate it or it got lost in the mail, then you need to make that request for a replacement ballot by mail 11 days before the election. But again, that deadline is only if you want your ballot mailed to you. The counties just need to have enough time to get it out in the mail to you. So that's why we have that 11-day deadline. So what do you actually get in the mail? Your ballot package includes the ballot. This is your official ballot. It includes instructions on how to complete that ballot. It includes the ballot affidavit envelope, and that's very important. And we'll talk about that in a minute. And it may include a privacy return envelope and or an I voted sticker. It depends on what county you're in, if you get that I voted sticker in the mail or if you get a privacy return envelope. Let's see here. And what to complete. So when you get that ballot package, what do you complete? You're going to fill out your official ballot. So you would fill in the ovals, and we recommend you use a black ballpoint pen. You don't want to use a marker that could bleed through, and you don't want to use red ink. We've seen people try to use crayons before. So we do recommend using a black ballpoint pen. That's the best one. Regardless of what you use, if for any reason the tabulation equipment cannot read your ballot, the county will duplicate your ballot for you with a bipartisan team. So don't worry if you feel that maybe you used the wrong writing instrument, your ballot will still count. But we do recommend using that black ballpoint pen. You also need to complete the affidavit envelope. This is very important because your ballot will not count unless you sign or mark that affidavit envelope. The county uses that information to verify your identity, date the ballot, And if you'd like, provide a phone number. The reason why I recommend providing a phone number is because if the county has any trouble in confirming your signature or your mark, they'll give you a call and you have the opportunity to cure that signature so that the county does know it was in fact you that voted that ballot and your ballot will count. You do have the right to have somebody to assist you in marking the ballot. If somebody does help, then they need to also sign that affidavit envelope. There's a section there specifically for people who assist voters in marking their ballot. It's very important to understand, though, that the person assisting you, they cannot sign on the signature line for the voter. They have to sign where they assisted. There's, again, a place specifically for people who assisted the voter. Only the voter should be signing or making their mark on the voter signature section. Fold the ballot and place it in the affidavit envelope and seal it. The affidavit envelope is what the county needs, again, because they need to verify your identity through doing a signature comparison through the voter registration rolls. If you had a privacy envelope that came with your ballot package, you can place it in that privacy envelope and that's what you would mail back. Again, it just depends on your county. It does not cost the voter anything to send these back. They are postage prepaid as long as you're mailing it back in Arizona. So who can return your voted ballot for you? So if you'd like somebody else to return it for you, Arizona law does have restrictions on who can be in possession of a voter's voted ballot. So in Arizona, only a family member, a household member, or a caregiver of the voter can return that voted ballot. So a caregiver essentially means a person who's providing medical or healthcare assistance to the voter. And so that could be, if the voter is in a residential care institution, if they're in assisted living. So anybody who's providing care to that person is a caregiver. A family member is somebody who's related to the voter by blood, marriage, adoption, or legal guardianship. And a household member means somebody who's residing, who's living in the same residence as you are. So again, only those folks can return your voted ballot for you if you decide not to do it yourself. So how, oh, and you know what, I'm sorry. I skipped a section here. So how can you actually return your ballot? So you have several options on how you can return a ballot that was mailed to you. You can mail it back. As I mentioned, postage is prepaid. If you decide to mail it back, it's very important that you drop it in the mail at least 1 week before Election Day. That's how long it will take the post office to ensure that they have enough time to process your ballot and get it back to the county, because all voted ballots must be received by 7 p.m. on Election Day. So again, if you're mailing it back, do it at least a week before Election Day, or you can drop it off. You can drop it off at any early ballot drop box bin in your county, any early voting location in your county, or any voting location on Election Day in your county. If you are dropping it off, you do not have to wait in line. If curbside voting is available, you can drop it off to the attendee there as well. So if you decide to vote in person, let's talk about what to expect there. The first thing, and this is very important, know when to go and where to go. So early voting, just like with mail voting, it opens 27 days before the election. Each county will have various locations and dates and times of operation. So it's best to confirm when you have that option to go. And you can do that on our website, azcleanelections.gov. We have all of those voting locations listed for all the counties. If you go vote on Election Day, polls are open from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Anybody in line by 7 p.m. will get to vote, even if there's, a wait. So let's say you don't actually get inside the polling location until 7:35. That's okay. You can still vote as long as you were in line by 7 p.m. So what to bring with you? You will need ID, identification, when you're voting in person. I also recommend bringing your sample ballot with you. So if you've previously made your determination on who you want to vote for, what you want to vote for, it's great to bring that with you so you can just fill out your ballot and you already know exactly what your choices are. And bring your voter guides. So as I mentioned, Clean Elections sends a voter education guide to everybody. The Secretary of State's office has a publicity pamphlet that goes out, and you may get candidate literature in the mail too. So bring whatever information with you that you'll need to cast your ballot. So some of the rights that you have at voting locations, let's talk about those. So every voter has the right to bring a person of their choosing with them into the polling place to assist them with voting. So if you want to bring a family member or a caregiver or a trusted friend with you to help assist you in the voting process, you can absolutely do that. There are some restrictions in law, such as a candidate, for example. You can't bring a candidate, somebody who has their name on the actual ballot with you. But again, very limited circumstances on who can be restricted to attending with you in the polling place. And children are also allowed to go too. So if you have children and you want to educate them about the voting process, you can bring them into the polls too. Every voting location should have an accessible voting equipment that is there and set up. That's very important to understand. Not only is it required to be there, but it is required to be set up for use by any voter who wishes to use it. I know we often hear complaints and concerns that this isn't always the case at each voting location. And so what I recommend is that when you go to a voting location and you decide that you want to use that accessible voting equipment, if it's not set up, please communicate that to your county so they can do better. Let them know specifically what voting location it was, when you went, what time, and that it wasn't set up. That way they can do better to train the poll workers too. Again, I know this is usually an ongoing issue, but federal law does require it, and you do have that right. So let's make sure that we continue to fight for that right and educating the counties and the poll workers that it needs to be set up. You also have the right to vote a provisional ballot. So if there's any issue or concern about your eligibility to vote, or if the county can't find your name on the voter registration records, you do have the right to vote a provisional ballot. This is a fail-safe. So basically this ensures that, let's say there was a problem with the voter registration records and you know you were registered to vote and you kept your receipt, right, when you registered to vote. If you fill out that provisional ballot, then after election day, it will go to the county recorder and they'll investigate and you can communicate with them and show them your proof. And guess what? Your provisional ballot will count if the county finds that you were in fact eligible. So it's very important not to leave a voting location without voting, unless of course you're at the wrong precinct-based polling location, because you'll want to make sure you go to the right place so you get your right ballot style. Every voting location in person should have signs that are posted that explain what assistance is available to voters with a disability. So every voting location is required to have a magnifying instrument. Seating should be available, rest stops if there's lines, and pen and paper for communication, and other assistance too. And so I recommend checking with your county because there could be additional options available, such as curbside voting or additional equipment for assistance. So it's always good to have a talk with your county elections office so you understand what resources they have available. If you encounter any issues at all, the inspector is in charge at the polling place. So you can ask to speak to the inspector. If the inspector cannot resolve your issue, don't leave. Please escalate the issue to the county. The county can dispatch a troubleshooter who can come down to that polling place and work with you to resolve the issue. So county election staff, they are on standby, and those poll workers have a direct line of communication with them. So if for whatever reason you have an issue or a concern and the poll worker just isn't able to help you, ask them to escalate it to the county, and again, they can get you the assistance that you need and hopefully resolve your issue. Please, again, communicate with the county. If they know, then they can do better. So whatever issue that you may have encountered at the polls, and even if it's a positive experience too, communicate with that county so they can know, because they're always looking to improve their poll worker training, and they want to know of any issues that voters can experience, because they do want voters to have the best voting experience possible. So one of the other options we talked about in voting is a special election board. So a special election board, basically the law allows personal ballot delivery through this special election board, and it can be provided to any voter who's confined as a result of a continuing illness or physical disability and cannot go vote in person. So basically a special election board is a bipartisan board So we make sure that we have at least one member from each political party, and they can actually go deliver the voter's ballot to them personally. If you require a special election board to deliver your ballot to you, you need to make that request with the county by 5 p.m., 11 days before the election. So that's the second Friday before the election. If for some reason after the second Friday of the election you haven't made that request, the county can still take your request in and do their best to get a special election board out to you. So what to expect? The county will talk with you, and they'll arrange a time for the special election board to come out and bring your ballot. You will be required to show identification because, again, ID is required anytime you vote in person. And if the special election board comes to you during the emergency early voting period, which is the time period between 5 p.m. of the Friday before the election and that Monday before the election, you will have to sign a statement under penalty of perjury that states that you had an emergency that prevents you from going to the polls. So if you feel that you'll need a special election board for an upcoming election, the best advice I can give you is to contact your county elections office and let them know as soon as possible. That way they can make sure they have it in the system. You're on the books to get that special election board out to you. So ballot accessibility. We've talked about this a little bit, but to reinforce this, every voting location has to have that accessible voting device for voters. So it has to be there and set up. Every voting location should be ADA in compliance with ADA requirements. It should have accessible parking, wheelchair accessibility, and resources for voters that are visually or have hearing impairments. Again, that actual location should be in compliance with ADA requirements. And then as far as the ballot itself too, again, you have the option for a special election board, and there are other resources available too. So you can make a request with your county elections office for a braille ballot or a large print ballot, or if you need it in an alternate format. Maricopa County has these really large printers that they can print ballots that are wall map size, so they can make them pretty big. So again, whatever accommodation that you may need, the best thing you can do is communicate to your county as early as possible to make that request. One thing I wanted to talk with you all about, because it's so prevalent right now, is mis and disinformation. So we've talked about kind of what to expect during the voting process, and that's very logistical, you know, kind of the hows of how to get your ballot. But one thing I wanted to share too is to be an informed voter, be aware of where you're consuming your election information from. Right now, there's a lot of concerns and threats about mis and disinformation out there, which is essentially putting out false information about the voting process. And we would never want somebody to be disenfranchised because of that. So we want voters to be responsible consumers of the election information that they're coming across. So we know a lot of people are on Facebook or social media. So if you're out there, please just be aware of the information that's being presented to you. You know, does it look factual? Do you trust the source? Does it look, you know, like it's legitimate? Is it a joke? And at the end of the day, please remember that the best sources for your official election information are going to be your county, so we have 15 counties, the county recorder's office and the county elections office. It's going to be the Secretary of State's office, and it's going to be Clean Elections. We are the official election information for you. So those are the best places to go for your election information. What to expect next year? We have a full ballot, so we will be in the midterm elections, and all of the statewide offices will be on the ballot. So governor, Secretary of State, Attorney General. We will have our federal elections. We'll have a U.S. Senate seat on the ballot. We'll have our 9 congressional districts. Our House of Representatives will be on the ballot. And of course, we'll have our state legislature. We will have judicial retention elections. So you'll see all the judges on there. And then any ballot propositions, any statewide ballot propositions. So this is all at the state level. There will also be local elections on your ballot too. So it's going to be a pretty big ballot next year in 2022. So please, you know, take the time to do your research, and that way you can vote informed and you know about the candidates and the issues that'll be on your ballot. So how to empower yourself, how to empower your vote, take charge of your vote. And I think this is so important because I think an informed voter is an empowered voter. Verify your registration before the deadline. It's always 29 days before the election. So we recommend you verify it again. That way there's no surprises, because if you've moved, if you've changed your name, if you want to change political affiliations, you have to do that 29 days before the election. So again, just verify it, check it out, and make sure it's all good. Confirm if you're going to be sent a ballot by mail. Confirm if you're on that early voting list, or if the county has you down for a one-time request. Confirm your in-person voting options. If you decide you'd rather go out into the polls, then make sure you know where to go. Look up all the locations that are available to you in your county. No key dates and deadlines. That way you never miss the deadline, because if you miss the deadline, that's it. There's no do-overs. Track the status of your early ballot. If the ballot's going to be mailed to you, a lot of our counties have great tracking tools available. You can get text and email alerts from Maricopa County. You can look it up online. So it's good to be informed about where your ballot's coming to you. Communicate with your county election officials in advance. So again, if you require any accommodations, please talk to them. That way they know as early as possible and they can assist you in however you need. If while you're voting in person, you vote a provisional ballot, you'll get a number that you can look up after to confirm the status of your provisional ballot. That way you can confirm your vote was counted. And then know what identification is accepted. So if you don't have a driver's license, then know what other ID you can bring with you to the polls. So that's a lot to know. But the good thing is we have one place you can go to, that azcleanelections.gov. We have all of that information there for you. There's a lot of resources available to voters. Clean Elections, we partner with the Arizona Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing to make American Sign Language videos of our voter guide, of other how to vote videos, voter education videos, things like that. So we're really proud to partner with them to provide those ASL videos. We provide captions on all of the information we put out. We partner with Sun Sounds of Arizona to produce an audio version of our voter guide. Of course, there's the Arizona Center for Disability Law. We've got the, there's just a lot of resources available to voters. And so be informed about those. That way you can get the assistance that you may need. And so with that, I'm happy to, let's see, I'm gonna, I can't actually see the chat when I'm sharing my screen. So I don't know, Ronaldo, if there's any questions that you can read to me that I'm happy to address before we jump into your slides, Ronaldo.
Let me look real quick.
I didn't see any at this point.
I don't see any either. Okay.
All right, perfect. Well then, thank you all. And I will turn the slides over to Ronaldo. Ronaldo, just let me know and I can advance each slide for you.
Perfect, Gina. Thank you. Thank you, Gina. Hi, I'm Ronaldo Fowler. Gina has a slide up on the screen now. I'm the coordinator for the Protection and Advocacy Voting Access, which we call PAVA. I'm with the Arizona Center for Disability Law, which is the protection and advocacy system for Arizona. There's a similar organization in every state. So if you have any questions about the work that we do, you can go to our website. I would highly encourage you to go to our website. Next page, please. Next slide. Okay, so this is Arizona Center, ACDL. ACDL is a nonprofit protection and advocacy. We are providing advocacy information, referral services, community legal education, and in selected cases, legal representations to individuals with disabilities and their families. Next slide. So I just want to do a brief introduction to the Arizona Center for Disability Law. Gina did an outstanding presentation. I just want to really reiterate what Gina talked about is setting yourself up for success. She gave a lot of information out to you. I would encourage you to do that. One of the things, as you know, this has been a really tough year around elections. Gina mentioned misinformation, disinformation, all out lies, just attack on our system. But I think what the focus should be is You need to know your rights to protect your rights. I think that's the approach we need to think about. And so my job here at the Arizona Center for Disability Law, working overseeing the PAVA program, what I do is I work to ensure that Arizonans with disabilities have an opportunity to cast a private and independent vote. That's one of the key things that I really make an effort that voters with disabilities have that option to cast that private and independent vote. And this language comes from the Help America Vote Act that talks about your right as a person with a disability to cast a private and independent vote. And one of the things I really talk about, number two, is having full participation in the electoral process in registering to vote, casting a vote, and accessing polling locations. I want everybody to realize that when you talk about voting, it's not about on election day. There's so many things that go into the electoral process: voter education, preparing, knowing about your rights. You know, a lot of the homework you need to do should be done before election day. As Gina mentioned, know your polling place. There's a Supreme Court decision that talks about if you vote at the wrong place, they won't count your ballot. Okay. So one of the things you really want to make sure that you're a knowledgeable voter. You need to know where your precinct is. You need to know the timelines. Gina talked about 11 days for the special election board, registering 29 days. So to ensure full access and participation in the electoral process, you need to empower yourself with information. Okay, next slide, please. So what we do in the Protection and Voting Access program, the PAVA program, this is kind of our scope of work. And so what you look up on the screen, it says increased voter registration for Arizonans with disabilities. This is we at the Arizona Center for Disability Law, and I'm going to talk more about it, but with our Arizona Disability Voter Coalition partners, there are different organizations that we work with that work on all 5 of these particular areas. And so, as I mentioned, voter registration, getting people registered to vote. About a week ago was National Disability Voter Registration Week. We sent out some information to a lot of disability organizations. On the 28th, it's going to be National Voter Registration Day. So September is a big voter registration day. A lot of organizations are out there trying to get people registered to vote. And also, number 2, increased voter participation for Arizonans with disabilities. Well, what's the difference between the two? Registering to vote and actually going to vote are 2 different processes. So we want to encourage you to get out there and register and participate. Gina mentioned earlier, we have many different ways you can vote in Arizona. You can vote by mail, all of these different types of things that you can do. So really, you want to be heard. You don't want to give away your rights, give away your power. Number 3, increased voter education opportunities for Arizonans with disabilities. That's what we're doing today. Gina provided a great presentation about your rights, great information, great resources. The self-advocates, we do voting rights trainings with them. So what we want to do is we want to give voters with a lot of options to learn about your rights. Our website, Gina's website, and Bill's going to talk a little bit about some of the resources they have to educate yourself about what your rights are. So at the end of the day, you're going to have to learn about your rights to protect your rights. Okay, so voter education opportunities. And number 4, protecting the voting rights of Arizonans with disabilities to ensure full access to the electoral process. What does that mean? On election day, I run a voters hotline. If you have any problems, you can call us. We can help you resolve it. Gina gave you some ideas about talking to the inspector. If you have any problems, don't leave the polling place. There should be a number clearly signed at the polling location saying if you have a problem, who you can call, okay? So one of the things you want to do is you want to educate yourself to minimize your having any problems on election day. And number 5, the Arizona Disability Voter Coalition, our office, we work very hard with election officials. We work with Gina's office. We try to work with Secretary of State's office, our county recorders, our election directors, to try to improve voting for Arizonans with disabilities. So we do a lot of work working with our election officials, and we've done a lot of good work over the last few years working with all of our election officials. Next slide, please. So We have, as I mentioned to you earlier, there's voting information on our website. Please go to our website. I am working on updating that information. As we mentioned earlier, laws have changed, so we're updating our information. So making sure that information is accurate. Next page. So as I mentioned, if you have any problems on election day, we run a hotline from 6 o'clock to 7 p.m. The phone numbers are below. Feel free to give us a call. Next slide. So if you have any other questions or any issues or you need assistance, these are our hours, our intake hours. Feel free to give me a call or email me. And if you have any questions about voting, I just want to talk a little bit about the Arizona Center for Disability Law. Gina did a great job, but Gina's there, I'm there, and now I'm going to turn it over to Bill. If there's any questions in the chat, I'll take those, but if not, we'll just go ahead and have Bill start his presentation.
Well, hello, everyone. I didn't see any questions in the chat, so I shall start. But again, guys, hello, my name is Bill Lucero. I am a young Hispanic man with brown hair, brown eyes, a goatee, a heather gray shirt with the word vote on it. But again, guys, thank you guys so much for joining us today. I am part of the SABE GoVoter Project, Self-Advocates Becoming Empowered. You can go to the next slide, please. Well, again, self-advocacy is becoming empowered, SABE. So SABE is a United States national self-advocacy organization ran by people with DD and for people with DD. It is a national board dedicated to the rights for people with disabilities across the U.S. Here's the website right here. It's www.sabeusa.org. It's SABEUSA.org. You guys can go there to check out some of the resources that we have there, and some of the other projects that we'll be talking about today will be on there as well. Next slide, please. So one of those projects is actually called the SABE GoVoter Project. Again, this is a free a toolkit that you guys can use to educate people with disabilities about their voting rights and their responsibilities. So we also provide technical assistance to improve voting experience, and how we get those technical assistance that we want to work on is actually from the comments from our a GoVoter survey that I will be talking about in a few. So we've gotten a bunch of that comments through there to help the voter actually have a better experience while they're voting. We also support the partnerships with P&As and self-advocacy groups as well here locally and nationally. Next slide, please. So speaking of the experience survey, this is our current one that we're going to be having and actually going to be available for you guys probably sometime at the end of this month. But again, this is the cover. We have a young gentleman here as well. He has a U.S. flag mask on. He has a red shirt with the SABE GoVoter logo on there. It also has the 2020 year, and it says "Power of the Disability Vote" in quotes. But yes, again, this is the SABE GoVoter Experience Survey. It is in English and Spanish languages. Actually, for the 2020 survey, we actually got 1,280 surveys collected this year from 47 states. Hopefully, we can get some more surveys for our next one that we should be doing soon, and hopefully get some more states as well. Next slide, please. Again, so the SABE GoVoter report shows the different ways we can describe a voter. So it has a picture of a young lady. She has a purple sweater with a white shirt on with purple earrings and purple hair. She has black arrows going around her, and those arrows also have words around them. So one of those words is type of disability, where voters work, where voters live, their gender, their race, their age, and their state. Next slide, please. So again, if you guys have any questions about the GoVoter project or would like to get some of the resources for the GoVoter project, you guys can actually go to SABEGoVoter.org website. That is GoVoter.org. And here is some emails as well. We have Teresa Moore, Juliana, and Tom that you guys can email if you guys have any questions about the GoVoter project or have any specific requests that you guys would like to have presentation or anything or toolkit. You guys can contact them as well. Next slide, please. So again, here's another project by SABE, and it's called the SARTAC project. It's the Self-Advocacy Resource and Technical Assistance Center. So we have, so the mission is for SARTAC is to strengthen the self-advocacy movement by supporting self-advocacy organizations to grow in diversity and leadership. So think of SARTAC as like a Google website where there is tons of resources that you guys can download and use for your self-advocacy groups or for any presentations like this today. So there is a search bar and you can actually type in a specific a resource that you're looking for. And if that's not on there, and you guys can always contact us of seeing like you want to have these resources incorporated into that website. And you can, if you have the resources, you can also submit your resources to be published onto the website to be used for other individuals to take advantage of your what do you call it, toolkits or anything that you guys have. We also have a weekly Zoom meeting. It's every Thursday. You guys can actually subscribe on the selfadvocacyinfo.org website to actually get the invites for every single weekly meeting. So the meetings will actually have different topics every single Thursday. And it's very, very inclusive of everyone. And we like to always hear input and life stories from people, depending on those different topics that you guys have here. On the right side, we also have the logo. There's a blue book with silhouettes of people with different colors. We have blue, purple, red, orange, yellow, green, and a light green, and SARTAC words below that. But yes, that's again, you guys think of it as like a Google searching for those resources. If you guys ever need anything on there, please check it out. Again, selfadvocacyinfo.org is the website. And I believe that should be it.
And Bill, I also want to remind people, I just put in the chat, we are having a voting rights training on September the 28th on National Voter Registration Day. So I put the link to the registration. That's a free training. Bill's going to be there also presenting probably the same presentation. But what we want to do is we want to give you as many opportunities to learn about your voting rights. And the training will be done by one of our attorneys at the Arizona Center for Disability Law. So he'll be able to talk about more legal stuff. I'm not an attorney, so he'll be able to, get a little deeper into some of the new changes to the new laws. So one of the things we talk about, as Gina mentioned earlier, a lot of people with disabilities live in group homes or different living arrangements, and they have staff that are there to assist them. And so if you look at the definition of a caregiver, can that staff who works at the group home take that information in and help them vote? So those are the type of questions that we will have during that training. So, okay, so that's kind of it in my presentation. Gina, you want to close it out for us today?
Sure. Thank you, Ronaldo. Thank you, Bill. And thank you again to everybody who joined this breakout session. Again, we're very excited to speak with all of you about how you can be an informed and empowered voter. I think, I really liked how Ronaldo put it, to know your rights is to protect your rights. And so Again, we are an ongoing resource for you. So please keep note of our websites, of our contact information, any questions that you have or concerns. We're here and we're always available to assist you. I think we may have a little bit more time if anybody has any questions at all about the voting process, what to expect, things like that. We're happy to answer those. And if there's no further questions, then Juliana, I'll leave it to you to direct us on what to do next.
All right, if you have any questions, you can either raise your hand or unmute yourself and ask this group any questions. It looks like Paul has a question. Go ahead, Paul.
How do you go through the GoVoter training?
Bill, Bill Ronaldo, you want to answer that question?
Yes, let's see.
Okay, so we do have an upcoming training on the 28th about your rights. And so I did put a link in the chat room where you can just go and register for the training. We offer that training, but also Bill, you guys offer training. So you want to talk a little bit about maybe some upcoming trainings that you're going to be having?
Yeah, so just like Ronaldo said, he did post a link for one that we're going to be having on Tuesday, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So you can attend that, or if you want to have a future meeting or actually a presentation for either a group or something, you guys can always contact us. I will put down the email if you would like to have a presentation, or we can actually send you some of the toolkits and presentations that you guys can look over as well. Either one will work. Let me put that into the chat real quick. Let's see.
And then we just have a few more minutes, Bill, and then we'll go ahead and.
Hey, Juliana,
can
I add some things? I want to just say, anyone that's interested in participating as joining the Disability Voter Coalition that we have, please feel free to email me. Everyone's welcome. We want to hear from you. We want to have a variety of persons out there. We're hoping to schedule another meeting in October. Gina, you were at our last meeting, a very successful meeting. We had a lot of election officials there. And we're going to be working on those 5 different areas, like I mentioned: voter registration, voter participation, voter education, protecting your rights, and working with election officials. So please join us if you want to participate. It's a good group. We've been together for years. And so we love to have different voices on the table. Also, as I mentioned earlier, please come to the training next week on the 28th. Learn about your rights.
All right, and we're about time. So thank you, Gina and Ronaldo and Bill, for presenting about voting in Arizona.
Yeah.
Thank you.